What is going on, everybody? We always love to talk about any opportunity we have to talk about workforce development, and in particular, workforce development, bringing veterans and military family members and military spouses into workforce pipelines. Any opportunity we get to do that and to talk about programs that support and facilitate that, we do that because we're the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and that's what we're all about. Like, building a better Wisconsin, making Wisconsin the best state for veterans, being like any other chamber of commerce, we are an economic organization. We want the Wisconsin economy to thrive overarchingly, not just micro economies, not just, this veteran small business to succeed. We want that too. But we think the entire economy, the entire Wisconsin, all of Wisconsin will be better off if veteran-owned businesses are supported and veteran employees and veteran transitioners and military spouse employees are supported the way that they need to be supported, the way that they should be supported and understood, and all that fun stuff. So any chance we get to talk about those big pillars of what we represent, we're going to talk about it. And in the whole world of veteran workforce development, there's a lot out there. But there's a difference as far as programs are concerned. But there's a difference between quality and quantity. I mean, if quantity of support programs meant success, if quantity of, let's see how I can phrase it, if quantity of support programs meant success, then we wouldn't have any veteran issues anywhere, because there's 50,000 veteran serving nonprofit organizations out there. Goodness. Quality matters because there's saturation in all of these things, and workforce development is no exception. There are a lot of programs out there, and some of them are great. Some of them are not as good. Some of them are predatory. Some of them are just marketing ploys. So a corporation can say, look, we support our veterans. We have this paper thin, flimsy, whatever way to support veterans in their career transition or whatever. We hire veterans. And it's like $14 an hour part-time. Forget that. But on the workforce development end, there are key players. It's not just corporate entities. They play a role. And it's not just the hiring entities, corporate or non. It's not just the employees or the employment seekers or the career seekers or their spouses who are career seekers. But there are a lot of people in between who play a facilitator role, right? And in that kind of nebulous area in between, staffing agencies have seen a boom lately, and do a great job. And I think recruiters are also in the kind of that same nebulous area, doing a good job of connecting talent with opportunity. And if that wasn't the case, corporations wouldn't spend so much money on recruiting, because retaining a quality employee, even at a premium, is a lot more cost effective than just like rolling the dice and having retention issues or not having a quality employee acquired. So the recruiters and the staffing agencies, all those folks in between, do a really good job of bridging those gaps. And now some staffing agencies will have veteran-specific programs and not really do it correctly. They will basically reach out to employers and say, you need to hire veterans. It's good for optics. You get a tax break. Hey, these guys are veteran friendly. Boop, boop. And then next thing you know, we have underemployment issues. We have retention issues, specifically in our demographic, like epidemic underemployment. Yikes. Okay, so a company out there that's doing it right. See where I was going with this? It was kind of a winding road there, but Brooksource is a great company we've been friends with for a really long time. They're headquartered out of Indianapolis, but they work nationwide, and they've really written the book on staffing solutions in a variety of areas. They have a program right now called Project Patriot. Well, not right now. They've had it for a while. Project Patriot, which is it is a multifaceted transition and employment support program with ongoing support for veterans, military spouses. It has the pre-transition, the during transition, and they don't just say like, here's your job, good luck. There's like ongoing support. It really is top notch. And to talk about it, our good friend Shelby Whalen from Brooksource is going to tell us all about it. You get to stop hearing me talk about it because you've reached the extent of my knowledge. That's it. I am not the subject matter expert, but we brought the subject matter expert so you don't have to listen to me talk anymore. We're going to get into it right after this very brief but very loud bumper video. Let's go! See, motivated, pumped up, good stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Our good friend, Shelby. How are you?
I am great. How are you today, Adam?
Fantastic. I'm motivated, ready to rock, ready to talk about workforce development. So quick, tell us about yourself. How did you get to be where you're at with Brooksource, and what do you do with Brooksource?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just hit my 2-year mark with Brooksource, actually. And I have a bachelor's degree from UW-Milwaukee in communications. And I came into Brooksource 2 years ago as a technical recruiter. And now I focus more so on workforce transformation as our workforce transformation program coordinator. And I know that's kind of, a very wordy way to say it, but Project Patriot actually falls under workforce transformation. So a lot I do right now is focus on associate level talent and helping them transition into really fulfilling careers and offer that support throughout the interview process as well as once they're in the actual position.
So let's dive right in. So if you're managing Project Patriot, then can you talk about, because I was looking at this one sheeter for it and noticed that it is a multi-step, multifaceted. It isn't just like intake, outtake, revolving doors sort of thing. So can you talk us through the whole, like what Project Patriot encompasses?
Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to ask questions if if something doesn't totally make perfect sense as I explain it, because like you said, it is really comprehensive. So really it does work with an individual from, the first conversation that I have with them all the way through, the actual position that they're in. So, for example, the first conversation that I have with a veteran, maybe they, self-disclose that they were in the service. Typically it is, a 10 to 15-minute phone call, really high level, just to make sure that, if we do move forward to an interview, it's not something that's a waste of their time. So we like to hit on the most important details, talk about pay, talk about location, responsibilities right up front. If it feels like a great fit, we move into that first round interview. That interview is still with me. It's about 25 to 30 minutes long. That's where we can get a much more greater detail and a better understanding of who this person is, really what is it that they are looking for, and how will this job fulfill that. That also is a great opportunity to ask more information about their time in the service and understand, what did that teach you? What do you think, what unique skill set does that give you? What type of maybe leadership experience, or, just what did that teach you, and how is that going to apply to your career going forward? And I do want to just quick caveat and say that, we don't only work with recently transitioned veterans. We also very much, work with someone who's in a senior level, maybe transitioned 30 years ago and doesn't need the same type of support. So we can definitely talk about that, but I'm going to focus on maybe someone who's more recently transitioned. So, I can learn a lot more about that person within that conversation. And then I can also find out, hey, what about the interview process makes you a little bit nervous? What's something that you don't feel super confident in right now, and how can I offer you some support there? Or, a big thing that we do with all candidates, but can be especially helpful for someone who's transitioning, is looking through their resume and helping adapt it to the civilian workforce, making sure that instead of maybe listing an MOS, we list, more specific responsibilities or things to make sure that, a manager at, let's say, GE Healthcare can look at that and understand what that means. Making sure that, we're adapting those responsibilities so that any manager or any recruiter, whether it's me or someone else, can look at it and really understand, yeah, you are a great fit for this. You do have that experience I'm looking for. So again, helping adapt the resume, but then also helping them throughout the client interview process. So I can offer feedback from the interview that I had with them and also identify certain skills where maybe, let's say there are some soft skills that need some work, or it's maybe overly formal. And just being able to work with them, do some role plays, set up a call to walk through their resume, explain the changes I'd recommend, walk through, the interview process and explain how they can best prepare and what I'm able to provide them with from an assistance standpoint. And then there's the side of really advocating for these individuals with our clients, because, I'm not just emailing over a couple of resumes, the manager looks and says yes or no. I'm actually sitting down with the hiring manager and explaining, hey, this is why I think that this individual is such an awesome fit for the role. And what I really like about that is that oftentimes gives me the opportunity to explain why I brought a resume that maybe isn't exactly what they expect. There's been multiple times where, a position might say, we're looking for 2 to 3 years of experience in these 3 things. And I bring to the table, a candidate that has, maybe 1 year of experience. Maybe they just went through a bachelor's or a boot camp, but they, served 4 years or more in the Navy or in the Army, or, something that I can say, yes, they don't have as many years of experience as you're looking for, but here's what you're going to get by hiring a veteran. And I've already spent 30 minutes to an hour with this individual. Here's what I got from that conversation, and here's why I think they're a really awesome fit for this position, even though maybe on paper it's not exactly what you expected. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we're able to do is really advocate for each individual and not just kind of be like, hey, we're giving you the tools, but good luck with the hiring team. Explaining here's what to expect, here's how to interview them best. We are really like the experts in the hiring space. That's why they're using us to begin with. So there have been, multiple situations where I've brought in a candidate where maybe just looking at the resume, they wouldn't get an interview or they wouldn't get hired. But once they actually got to meet with that hiring manager, they ended up getting a position that, again, they might not look like on paper they're qualified for, or they might not, looking at the other individuals going for the position, it might not seem like they are the best choice, but then they actually get in front of the hiring manager. They can see the leadership experience, the maturity, the grit, those kinds of things that we see so frequently with veterans, and even explaining to, to our clients what this can do for retention, because I know, with veteran retention numbers, they are significantly better than, just a typical associate level candidate coming straight out of college that you might see otherwise.
It's funny you mentioned the over formality, and that was an issue for me personally as I transitioned. I first of all, it was habit, calling everyone sir or ma'am, but then also I think in the back of my head I thought, I'm coming from the prestigious military training instructor corps, known as the ultimate professional in the Air Force. If I go in there and show them this just polished professional sir and ma'am and blah, they'll be so impressed. And, but then by the end of the day, what I realized is it just made me look like a like a wild animal that had escaped from the zoo and wandered into the business by accident, to the interview by accident. It made me seem other. And even in some cases, I had a superior tell me, yeah, don't call me sir, call me John or Jane. And I'd be like, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am. And I could just tell, far from being viewed as respectful, it made me seem other and separate and different. And I think that's something that a lot of veterans have issues with. Some veterans have issues on the opposite end of the spectrum. That maybe they're a little rough around the edges, but there's not a lot of in-between stuff. And that's obviously, generally speaking, where I'm kind of stereotyping here. But so my first question is, do you notice that there are a lot of trends like that as you work with veterans and helping them find their next career move? And it may not be a transition, maybe they've been out for a while, but do you notice that they're typically over formal, or they're typically rough around the edges, or they're typically, whatever. Are there any trends that you see, any common threads? Or is it all just kind of like they're just random people like everybody else?
It's a mix. It is absolutely person to person, just like everyone else. But I definitely think it tends to edge on the more formal or more serious side of things, where I think it often just sometimes takes a little bit longer into the conversation for them to open up a little bit. So I think it's also understanding those soft skills and how to connect with people and how to get, past that like more serious, more formal facade to actually truly get to know them.
So what about from the employer end? There are a lot of employers who are seeking veteran talent, and some of them
Mm-hmm.
don't know why, and some of them do know why. Do you notice any common threads on their end? What are they looking for? Why do they want veteran talent?
Mm-hmm. I think one of the main reasons is retention. I think we all know that, especially to just clarify, I specialize in the IT and engineering space. I don't
Mm,
know if I mentioned that earlier. And specifically in IT, you do see a lot of job hopping in IT consulting.
right.
And that's okay. The market has been crazy. Salaries skyrocketed by, I think, 20% over the past year or so for software engineers. And
Sure.
a lot of that has to do with people, being able to find higher pay with, more remote positions. So I definitely think there is a huge appeal from the point of stability, leadership. Again, we do so much education on the client side of like, why should you want to hire a veteran other than the fact that maybe it gives you like the warm and fuzzies. And I
Right.
do think that there is, of course, that level of like respect and maturity where people genuinely say like, I respect and I trust this person. And I think you just feel hiring hiring someone is always a bit of a gamble. And I think that when you've, met with someone who does maybe bring a little bit more of that formality to their interview. I'm not saying totally take that out the window. I think it's just making sure to still show who you are a little bit. Bringing in that formality, seeing, yeah, this person was able to make a decision. They stuck with it. They were really dedicated to something for a long time. I think that hiring a veteran sometimes feels like a little bit less of a gamble because you do understand the type of individual that comes out of the military and the strengths that they bring.
So we did the from the employment seeker end and the employer end,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as synergies are concerned, have you noticed any common threads between the two? Like, what are some things that might be a challenge as far as linking veteran talent up with with an employer who is seeking veteran talent? Like, do you notice any common threads in disconnects? Things that get in the way of those matchups happening?
Definitely. And I can speak more to, again, the IT and engineering space. So a lot of what we do specifically in our Elevate Workforce Transformation program is upskilling. So it's not reskilling. We're not taking someone with a marketing background and teaching them to code. We're taking someone who, maybe is a recent boot camp graduate, 4-year degree graduate, someone with self-taught experience, but still is in that associate level. And then we help, we provide them with supplemental technical and professional development to help them get from associate to mid-level much more quickly than if they were to just be kind of thrown in learning on the job. So what we will often say is, we would love to, connect with veterans right as they're transitioning out of the military and then connect them with these positions. But sometimes what we'll find is that the technology that is being used while they're serving is not a close enough match to the responsibilities that they would be doing in a position where oftentimes they might still need to go to, one of those technical boot camps for coding or need to go and, to, a 4-year degree or an associate's degree to get that experience that helps them, because sometimes that jump is a little too large. That can be due to, security purposes. The military obviously has to use certain technology that, let's say Foot Locker, doesn't, maybe they can pivot a little bit more quickly. Or I've seen that in the IT and engineering space, there's a lot of government contracting versus, internally using individuals, from the Army and the Navy, et cetera. They're outsourcing and using military contracts. So the individuals that actually serve don't always have that level of expertise, since that was, contractors were used for those roles. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you mentioned associate level positions, and that's kind of a large portion of what you do, but you also mentioned that you do staffing support up and down the chain,
Yeah.
which I think is super important, because one of the issues that folks from our demographic run into is sometimes somebody gets out of the military after 4 years, they're 22 years old, they don't have a degree, and they just have their specific experience. And then there's somebody who just got out after 24 years. They have 2 undergraduate degrees, 24 years of progressive leadership experience, and they've retired. And sometimes people, that are recruiters, technical or otherwise, or staffing firms, will just put those 2 in the same basket and say, well, you're both veterans, so here. And an associate level position, like an entry level associate position, isn't necessarily a good fit for a large portion of veterans who are transitioning. So what do you say to folks who have like 8, 12, 16 years in, who are hesitant to talk to a staffing firm or a recruiter because they're afraid they're just going to get offered a $30K a year salary job that they can't support their family on, that isn't what they're valued at?
Absolutely. Well, I will say that is an excellent point, first of all. And, I would say that if I'm speaking with someone who, like you said, maybe has all of this higher education, has all these years of experience, and I'm reaching out to them for a position, I am not going to be reaching out to them for an associate level position.
Right.
The position I'm reaching out to them maybe is a senior project manager or an architect, for a digital transformation project. So I think it's understanding, looking at someone's experience and understanding what roles that they are a good fit for. And I also think that a big piece of it is I probably don't need to show them our transition accelerator. They have a pretty strong grasp at this point, of what it is like, to work in the civilian workforce. And of course, if it's something that they think they could utilize, that's awesome. But I think it's understanding, who is your audience, and also feeling comfortable asking questions, because I think a lot of us that haven't served really worry about saying the wrong thing or asking the wrong thing. And I think it's being comfortable saying, hey, I see that you have this experience. I know that you've been out of the service now for 12 years or so, but, is there anything that you think has really stuck with you and has helped you be so successful in your career so far? And not being afraid to still ask about it, even if it was a while back, or say, hey, I'm not an expert in this space. I'm an expert in the hiring space, but I see that you have, military experience in your past. Is that anything, we do advocate on behalf of veterans in the hiring process. We offer transition assistance. Is that anything that would make sense for you or that you'd be interested in? And I think just not being afraid to ask. And of course, you want to be sure you're always being respectful, but also being like, yeah, this is a person who's usually open to sharing, or they understand I'm not an expert. So it's okay to say, hey, we offer this. Would you be interested? Instead of saying, you need this transition assistance when they truly don't.
Absolutely. And, it is a really tough, it's a tough position, I think, for some, especially those on with the longer tenure in the military. If you've served 24 years, obviously, maybe you're getting out and you had 50, 100 people reporting to you directly. And,
Wow.
you're getting paid very decently, and you have benefits, and you have all these things established, and you're known typically by that point as a subject matter expert. However, you may not have worked a single day in the civilian workforce in your entire life.
Yeah.
So you may not need help professionally or as a leader, but you may still need base level, crayons on scratch paper sort of transition assistance, and it can be
100%.
it can be a bit of an ego, like a little gut punch, because in some ways, when we transition, we have to start over. We have to pay our dues again because we are entering a new world. And though we may be able to excel quicker, we're going to have to take a few steps back, typically speaking. I think the hardest part is that those service members and their families, if they've been serving for a long time and they're, a non-commissioned officer or higher, or they're a field grade officer or higher, they're used to supporting themselves and their families at a certain level, and they cannot afford to go to an associate level thing. So they may be ready for a mid or a mid senior or senior level, whatever, but their transition skills are at such a low level that they get placed inaccurately, and it ends up placing a strain on them and their family, which is why it's really important for people in your position with programs like the programs that you're doing to know what you're doing, and you do know what you're doing. And so I really appreciate what it is that you do. So let me throw this banner up here. If anyone wants to learn more about Project Patriot, and Brooksource's whole Elevate program, it is, they're staffing, they're matching talent with positions, but they're also doing technical training, upskilling. They do career advising for veterans, resume building, job search and interview coaching. Like, it benefits them to get you into the right position. You don't pay, you're not like, here, Brooksource, here's $5,000, let's roll the dice. It's like, you don't even pay them. Like, they keep their lights on by working with the employers who want to acquire good talent, quality talent, who will stay around for a long time. So they do all of these things because they want you to get not just a job, but the best possible fit for the best possible compensation, because they and the people who they serve, their clients, all benefit from that. Is that kind of an accurate, overarching rundown?
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned, individuals that are transitioning, and it's that they have all this experience, and it's that piece of like, okay, now let's adapt it to the civilian workforce. And I think that's where some of that resume work comes in so handy, because it is, explaining like, okay, maybe just again on paper, someone might not realize how incredibly, talented and how incredibly experienced someone might be. So it's figuring out, how do we take this resume and adapt it? Or again, if I'm sitting down with a hiring manager, how do I, try to explain, yes, maybe you're not seeing the things you're used to seeing, but this is why this person is absolutely qualified for this mid-level or the senior level position, even if it wasn't done, at AT&T or something like that. Maybe it was done, within the Navy. So I think it is just really understanding how to advocate on behalf of, our candidates to our clients. And then I haven't mentioned, once someone's actually in a position, we do have a veteran resource group. So it's 3 weeks into a position, because you get so much information up front, you're more likely to ignore it, in that first week or so. 3 weeks into a position, you are invited, if you've self-identified as a veteran, to join our veteran resource group. So like you mentioned, we're nationwide. So that way, anyone of all different, position levels, so whether you're associate level or senior level, you're able to join this resource group, and you're able to connect with other people who have been through or are going through your current situation. And then of course that transition accelerator, and one of the things that is on the transition accelerator I like a lot is identify a mentor. And what falls under that is, ask your recruiter for a mentor connection with military experience. So it's not just on someone's plate to say, okay, find a veteran mentor, good luck. You've already been invited to join the veteran resource group. And then you can also reach out to me and say, hey, part of this transition accelerator is to connect with a mentor. Shelby, who do you know, or how can you help me connect with that person? So we are, not just giving them a to-do list, we're actually like supporting those connections, and really, helping those things. There's 36 different professional or transition accelerator goals for them to complete, which is about 9 per quarter, and it's meant to go over the course of 12 months.
Nice. See, that's what I'm talking about. Comprehensive facilitation of the transition process. Shelby, this has been really great, really informative. Appreciate your time today. Any closing parting wisdom?
I would just say that yes, we are there to advocate for you, but please know to advocate for yourself too, that your skills, your background, what you've learned over the past 4 or more years is so, so valuable to a workplace. They're not doing you a favor by finding you or hiring you. It's really because like you're worth all of the effort and you do so much to strengthen our workplaces.
Right on. Well said. Yeah, it's not a warm fuzzy thing. They benefit from acquiring you as well. That's a good point. Shelby, I'll ask you to hang on the line here for just 1 second while I close things out. There you have it, folks. Going across the bottom, brooksource.com/elevate. Learn more about Project Patriot and all of what they do to facilitate getting the right talent into the right places. And veterans are bombarded, service members are bombarded with like, well, you need to translate your skills. And yes, correct. That's all well and good. But how do you do that? You can search online forever and find 10 different bits of information that tell you to do it 10 different ways. What you need to do, if you don't know, is talk to someone who has a wide breadth of experience in whatever scenario you need to learn about. And in this case, if you don't know about translating skills, if you don't know about writing a resume, if you don't know about the civilian interview process, it behooves you to talk to somebody who does, and somebody who is in a staffing firm or a recruiter, someone who works for a Brooksource like Shelby, who has done this 100,000 times and knows how to speak both languages and can translate. Because you can't translate if you can't speak both languages. That doesn't make sense. If you were, let's say you were in China and somebody came up to you and was like, hey man, I need you to be an interpreter for me. Can you help me out? And you say, yeah, that's just fine. And you just speak English, you're not going to be a lot of help to that person. You got to be able to speak both languages. And if you can't, you got to talk to somebody who does. Your interpreter has to know both languages, at least at a cursory, rudimentary level. It's an analogy I just came up with that I'm very proud of. I'm going to ride that one off into the sunset. I'm going to quit now while I'm ahead. That was a good one. See y'all next week. Appreciate it.